start by introducing myself, and then I'll have our other judge introduce himself as well. My name is Tiffany Scurry. I'm Vice President and Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer at AMD. I'm based in Austin, Texas, and AMD makes high performance computing chips that are used for AI applications. So a very exciting time for us. Tom, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Maddie. I am based in San Francisco, California. I am a executive coach for business and leadership executives. I work with companies all over the world, from mid-level to senior level. Prior to this work, which I've been doing for quite a while, is I was working with a boutique institutional investment firm, which was one of the founders of SRI, Socially Responsible Investing, or ultimately called Responsible Investing, and worked on a number of ethical and legal engagements for our institutional investors. Prior to that, I was on Wall Street, so I wear a financial hat, and I managed international teams, specifically in the area of international finance, and have an extensive global background. So that's a little bit about me. Looking forward to this. This looks like this will be a really good one.
All right. And let me just go ahead and level set everyone with some opening comments. In this part of the competition, as you know, you're taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to the judges. So please make sure that everyone knows who you are and who they are before you begin. You will have 25 minutes to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all three counts. During your 25 minutes, the team will be uninterrupted. When you're finished, the judges will ask you questions for 10 to 15 minutes. And during that Q&A portion, both you and the judges stay in character. But after the Q&A, we can break character, and the judges will have an opportunity to give you feedback outside the roles that each of us are playing. So that said, I turn it over to Colossal.
All right, so we are the Colossal Blue Whales Consulting Group, and today we'll be covering the legal, financial, and ethical aspects, talking about McDonald's and Nestle during times of conflict in Russia. So my name is Patrick Quinn, and I'm the ethical advisor.
I'm Tyler Gould, and I'm the project manager.
I'm Max Clano, I'm the legal advisor.
I'm Isaac Odoro, I'm the ethical advisor.
And I am Stefania Bulach, an auditor of the company, and I am from Ukraine. So this is one of the main reasons why the team decided to discuss the topic, which arose due to the Russian war in Ukraine.
So for the overview of this presentation, the conflict in Ukraine has prompted companies like Nestle and McDonald's to make complex decisions balancing legal, financial, and ethical concerns. McDonald's sold its Russian restaurants while Nestle limited distribution to essential goods. Sanctions and Russian regulations complicate the legal landscape. Financially, companies must weigh profits against ethics. Nestle's decisions to withdraw demonstrates a commitment to social responsibility. Overall, the conflict underscores a delicate balance between profit-making and ethical principles for multinational corporations. Now I'll be passing this presentation on to Tyler, where he'll be talking about the introduction.
Thank you, Patrick. The war in Ukraine has been going on for a few years now, since 2014, but the full invasion started February 24th of 2022. After this has prompted businesses to make a lot of decisions on how they want to go forward and what they want to do regarding addressing this war. Two main companies that do business globally, including Russia, are McDonald's and Nestle. McDonald's is a good role model for what businesses can do since they sold all their stores and left Russia completely. Nestle took a different route and decided to switch to limiting their products and selling a limited supply of more essential products. Even though they say this, there are still a lot of non-essential goods in stores, such as candies and chocolates. So what they actually did is a little bit shady and still not completely clear. This project, we're focusing most on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 16. This goal says to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. This relates to our project since war is not peaceful and businesses should be doing all they can to keep everything peaceful and inclusive for everyone. Now I'm going to be moving on to the legal aspect. To start off, there are 3 laws of wars broken by Russia, including the war of aggression, war crimes, and genocide. As a result of this, there's been a lot of regulations from both sides, including Russia. Firstly, Russia violated Article 2.4 in 2021, which is the prohibition of a threat of force in international relations. After this, there's an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin on March of 2023, followed by Article 9 of Federal Law number 31 FC being implemented September of 2023. This law gives government the power to control companies and make them assist them in their war efforts. After this, shareholders' rights were suspended and government is able to completely control any company or corporation that's doing business in Russia. On the other side, countries all over the world have also implemented sanctions on Russia to try and slow down the war or discourage them from continuing it. The United States, the European Union, and Switzerland all have similar but slightly different regulations. This is important for McDonald's and Nestle because they're both from different countries. McDonald's is originally from the United States, so they have to deal with a lot of the United States sanctions. These sanctions are mainly about cutting out pools of money stored overseas and include banning the use of the US dollars in Russia. Switzerland adopted the European Union sanctions, which followed a similar role. On top of just cutting out pools of money stored overseas, they've also frozen assets for large people in Russia, such as Putin, the Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister, and other high-ups. All 3 countries, along with others along the globe, have joined together to ban Russia from using SWIFT. SWIFT is the largest messaging system used to link financial systems around the world. So cutting Russia out of SWIFT will do a big job at limiting their business in other countries. And now I'm going to be passing it on to Max to continue the legal section.
Thank you, Tyler. Today, I'll be going over how Nestle and McDonald's manage the legal issues and risk in regards to keeping operations open in Russia or closing them down completely. I'll first be going over how Nestle handled legal issues after deciding to keep operations going in Russia. Nestle has decided to keep manufacturing essential goods in Russia. In doing so, they have not broken any laws as of right now. But there are a few huge potential legal risks that could get them into some deep water. Switzerland, the home country of Nestle, has already implemented a number of sanctions on Russia. For an example, the ban of luxury goods is one of the sanctions that Switzerland has put into place. This is a huge risk for Nestle because if Switzerland decides they can put a sanction on the company Nestle. For an example is banning Nestle for sending goods and services not only out in Russia but around the world. The other potential legal risks are human rights violations. With Vladimir Putin implementing Article 9 Federal Law number 31-FN, which states all organizations, including international companies, are liable for military services. Some of the examples of the military service Nestle would have to provide for the Russian military: manufacture military-grade weapons, ensure the delivery of equipment to assembly and military units, also provide buildings and communication centers for the Russian military. This can result in being sued for human rights violations by the employees of Nestle Russia. Sorry about that little technical difficulty. Now I'll be going over how McDonald's approached legal issues by pulling all operations out of Russia. McDonald's hasn't broken any laws after suspending operations in Russia. McDonald's sold all 800 locations. But in doing so, they kept their trademark in Russia so no other entities could use their golden arches. With selling all 800 locations, McDonald's made sure their employees were paid in full for several months while the sale was going on, making sure the employees were taken care of financially and legally, ensuring that there would be no legal implications after pulling operations out of Russia. Now I'll be going over the legal solutions. So the first legal solution: comply with all international sanctions and regulations. It would be a good idea to have an OFAC compliance lawyer on staff to help guide companies with the regulations and sanctions imposed on Russia today. The second solution would be prevent contribution to human rights violations. Again, it would be a great idea to consult an expert in human law to see if any of the businesses are in any violations of human rights. 3, prioritizing transparency and accountability to the stakeholders. Provide clear information and decision making and risk assessment measures to address ethical and legal concerns between the two companies. Now I'll be passing it over to Stephanie to talk about the financial section.
Thank you, Max. So examining the financial positions of two corporations, it's worth noting that the McDonald's statement indicated that the company faced a financial change of approximately $1.4 billion due to its exit from the Russian market. This charge mainly involved writing off its net investment in Russia and recognizing significant losses from currency translation previously recorded in shareholders' equity. McDonald's acknowledged and accounted for the financial impact of leaving the Russian market, but did not directly compensate for any losses experienced by Russia itself. In terms of McDonald's support for Ukraine, despite the number of 108 non-operating restaurants in the country during the first year of full invasion, all Ukrainian workers continued to receive their salaries. Additionally, McDonald's demonstrated its commitment to its employees by establishing an assistance program, allocating $5 million to aid workers in Ukraine. Nestle operates in Russia through Nestle Russia LLC, which paid more than $25 million in profit taxes by 2021. Nestle's decision to maintain its presence in Russia during times of war unfortunately indicates a significant investment in the country's economy. Despite the turmoil, Nestle's estimated revenue of 195 billion Russian rubles, which is $2 billion in 2022, positions it as the 9th leading foreign company in Russia. Customs data analysis, which is not displayed on the balance sheets, shows that Nestle imported $374 million worth of raw materials in 2022 and $271 million worth of raw materials only for the first 9 months of 2023. According to the latest data, there are still 6 factories operating on the market, providing the country with its goods. Just for comparison, the amount of money spent by Russian government on one of the most used weapons against Ukrainians. These are the drones called Shahed. According to Reuters, Ukraine has been attacked by more than 4,630 Russian Shahed drones during the 25 months of war. Russia and Iran negotiated a lower per unit price for a bulk buy. An agreement conveyed in the document set a price of $193,000 per 6,000 unit buy, which displays the amount of spending on Shahed for those which has already attacked the country is of the amount $894 million. For both companies, there are approximately 2% of its worldwide income, which is coming from Russia, which positions them on the same level of revenue streams from this country. Russia's nominal GDP rose to 153 trillion Russian rubles in 2022, indicating a strong economic framework. In fact, Russia's military spending reached 8.4 trillion rubles or $124.5 billion in 2022, exceeding all of the previous numbers. As the summary, considering the McDonald's example and providing a research related to the company's new strategy within the Russian market, taking into account them selling the branches to Russian businesses, which allowed Russian companies proceed with their operations, but with no other attachments, illustrates a model for the Nestle by which we would encourage to follow the same steps as for Nestle Russia LLC. And the floor is given to Isaac.
Thank you. The ethical aspects of our presentation are prioritizing human life, transparency, and accountability. During the war, it shows that multinational companies can struggle with ethical dilemmas during a crisis, balancing profits with stakeholders in conflict zones, and multinational corporations operating in crisis-hit regions. The war in Ukraine has not only sparked tensions politically, but it has started something ethically. It has started conflicts and ethical issues for many multinational corporations. As Nestle made their decision to pull some of their products out and leaving essential goods, it made people question if what they're doing is ethically correct. The action that they took to remove their other items opened many questions about their moral obligations, business interests, and other commitments that they have to business ethics. The decision by Nestle to show their transparency of their mission statement and how they take accountability for their actions by publicly speaking about the situation and removing their products from Ukraine shelves. With this action, they are actively taking advice and looking for solutions to lower the penalty to Ukrainian people. This situation that Nestle is a part of is showing that many big corporations are faced with the same situations when they are tied to conflict zones and the problems that they are faced that are happening in Ukraine. The actions that they are taking show their moral duty and show their commitment to ethics. The mission that they're trying to show is that they can separate the difference from making a profit, business ethics, and social responsibilities. The decision by Nestle shows the transparency of their mission statement and how they take accountability of making their decisions. McDonald's as a corporation decided to sell their assets to Russian buyers. With this being done, it was in result to not assist Russia in purchasing any weapons or giving them any help within the war in Ukraine. McDonald's prioritized ethics by selling their businesses to Russian buyers and not letting their workers work in conflict zones such as Ukraine. This goes hand in hand in their finances because they decided to pay those workers during the times of the war, even though they weren't able to work. As McDonald's made these decisions to keep their name intact, in the realm of ethics, McDonald's can continue to uphold their reputation by not funding the war and as one of the biggest food chain corporations around the world. Now I'll be handing over the ethical aspects to Patrick as he continues to talk about it and give us our solutions.
Thank you, Isaac. So the war in Ukraine does in fact create a complicated ethical picture for global firms such as McDonald's and Nestle. In midst of global confusion, these businesses are confronted with the problem of striking a balance between their commercial interests and their ethical responsibilities. The fact that Nestle has chosen to remove products from the region that are not vital demonstrates that the company is aware of the ethical considerations that are at play. Nevertheless, this action raises problems regarding the degree to which corporations need to deal with places that are actively engaged in violence. When it comes to navigating ethical considerations during times of violence, businesses have a variety of options available to them, including suspending operations or offering humanitarian relief. In order to demonstrate a commitment to not escalating tensions or profiting from instability, pausing activities can be considered necessary. The provision of humanitarian help, on the other hand, can directly meet the need of populations that have been impacted while also keeping a presence in the region. A strong commitment to ethical ideals is demonstrated by McDonald's decision to sell its interests in Russia in order to separate itself from the war. The purpose of McDonald's decision to withdraw from the market is to exclude any possibility of being perceived as participating in or providing support for activities that violate international law or human rights. Despite the complex geopolitical circumstances, this choice highlights how important it is to prioritize the social duty of corporations over profit in the short term. The conduct of corporations during times of conflict sheds light on the complex relationship that exists between the pursuit of profit and the duty of firms to their communities. The generation of profits is necessary for the continuation of economic activities. Nevertheless, this should not be done at the expense of ethical considerations or the protection of human rights. It is the responsibility of businesses to uphold ethical standards and make a constructive contribution to the communities in which they conduct their operations. In the midst of geopolitical scenarios, Nestle can take a cue from McDonald's and carefully examine its activities in order to maintain its brand and meet its social duties. Nestle is able to demonstrate its commitment to corporate accountability and contribute to beneficial outcomes in regions that are affected by conflict by placing an emphasis on ethical ideals rather than economic objectives. At the end of the day, the acts that firms take during conflicts highlights how important it is to acknowledge the mutual dependency of profit, the preservation of human rights, and corporate accountability. Multinational firms have the potential to play a beneficial role in supporting stability and ethical behavior in regions that are experiencing conflict if they navigate these dynamics with integrity and foresight. At this point, I'll hand the presentation over to Stephanie, where she will review the conclusion.
Thank you, Patrick. And in summary, as for Nestle Russia LLC, it would be beneficial to follow the McDonald's model in order to maintain the reputation of the corporation. The profits of both corporations in the Russian market are similar, as about 2% of the whole worldwide income, which creates a strong incentive for the company to follow McDonald's common sense. This also may help Russian companies. First, it would boost Russian production, helping Russian businesses to gain a foothold in the market. Secondly, it will increase Nestle's ability not to be tied solely to profit, but rather to take social responsibility seriously. Because Ukrainians like me, for instance, struggled with not buying products produced by Nestle due to resistance to Nestle's chosen values and refusal to stop sponsoring the war in Ukraine. After all the research we have presented, there is one more thing we are to mention. This case proves that the history has taught Nestle nothing. During the Second World War, the company worked on two fronts, supplying its products to the German army and at the same time exporting goods to the countries of the anti-Hitler coalition. As a result, they are just repeating the same mistakes again, which we would not encourage to do. Thank you for your attention. We're looking forward to answering your questions.
you. In terms of who was who in the presentation, who was Blue Whale Consulting's client in this scenario? Like who are we as the listeners?
Thank you for the question. So what we decided to is that you are Nestle Russia LLC, but we are talking more overall about Nestle itself as the corporation worldwide of what we would encourage the Nestle to do. But you as the admission of Nestle LLC in Russia. So we would like to talk to you straight as of Nestle Russia LLC.
And so if you're talking to me as Nestle, I don't know if I'm comfortable. But okay, if you're talking to me as Nestle Russia LLC, what is your proposed solution? It's essentially to follow the example of other corporations like McDonald's. It's not example. Is that right?
Yes.
Trying to put a break.
Can you repeat it once again? Sorry. Can you repeat the question, please?
Oh, I think I got an answer. I was just trying to put a framework around what the presentation was suggesting or what the solution, but I think I understand now. I'm Nestle Russia LLC, and your consulting group's proposal to us is to do a better job in the future and follow the example of corporations like McDonald's with how they responded to this.
Yes, right. Thank you.
On the financial aspect, I believe your presentation did cover this, but maybe it just went a little bit too quickly while I was taking some notes. I think you quantified sort of the financial position of each of McDonald's and Nestle to be able to take a similar approach. Can you go over that part again? Like, how is Nestle equally situated to be able to take that same kind of action response that McDonald's?
Yes, as we know that the worldwide income of both corporations are the same on the land of on the Russian market, we just would like to consider as the equality between what profit they get, the same as McDonald's as well as Nestle.
Sorry, Tiffany, you cut out. I didn't hear what you said.
I'm not sure what, I don't know if my microphone is not working.
Now it is.
Oh, okay. I just was asking if you had any.
Oh, that's what I thought, but you cut out. So as part of Nestle LLC in Russia, how do you want us to deal with the fact that I appreciate the comparison with McDonald's and our similar size and that we are basically in the food business, but McDonald's is a domiciled US corporation and Nestle is a Swiss company, and there's just different there's different regulation and spirit of investing globally with Nestle. As you cited in World War II, there was an example of what happened with Switzerland, but there's a different tenor of our corporate board in Nestle with their global lens. How do you want us to speak to your proposal to them, knowing that as Swiss, they're just going to have a different lens on this than a US corporate board? Can you give us some pointers on that?
I would just say that so when Nestle said they were going to only sell essential goods to the state of Russia, but then you go into like the stores and like they're still selling chocolate bars, they're still selling soda pops, they're still selling, stuff that aren't essential goods. So I would just say, maybe take a step back and don't look at it as a country, I would say, but look at it as like a world and like what you're what you look like through the world lenses is saying like you said you're gonna do one thing and then all of a sudden you're doing a whole nother thing. So I would suggest that maybe take a step back and look at the perspective of how is that ethically right if you're gonna say you're gonna take all the essential goods out, but yet you're still selling like stuff that aren't essential goods, like candy bars and soda, as I said. So take a step back and think about how that looks to the world, not just government, the Switzerland of or the country of Switzerland. I would say.
That's helpful, Max. What comes to mind is the infant formula boycott that occurred when South Africa apartheid was going on. And there was a massive movement to pressure Nestle to withdraw from that production of infant formula in South Africa or in Africa in general. Are there some things that you think that we might be able to leverage in speaking with decision makers at the corporate level that could remind them of that scenario, that the global company of Nestle, that we really learned from that? What do you think about that?
So like in a sense of like what the question you're asking is like a sense of like what like I would think like the corporation would think of what we learned from that. I'm sorry, I didn't fully understand your question.
No problem. It's not the easiest question. So I'm trying to build a case for how we speak to our corporate board in Switzerland. And what I'm asking is, do you think there's any factoids or points that we might be able to use from the experience that Nestle corporate experienced with the infant formula boycott, which was a different ethical issue, but had a great impact on Nestle? If there's something in there that you think we might be able to use to strengthen the argument of what you're asking us to do.
So yeah, I would say, so if Nestle says they're gonna do one thing and they do the other, then I think that doesn't look very professional on Nestle's part, to be honest with you. Because if you, I feel like you're kind of backstabbing. How should I say? You're kind of backstabbing the people that believe in Nestle as a company, as a whole. So if you're a corporate, if they are using, if they're going to say that they're going to take again essential goods or non-essential goods out of Russia and keep essential goods in there, but yet they're still sending over non-essential goods. I just think again that just looks very unprofessional on Nestle's corporation as a whole.
Thank you.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it gave me more to kind of gnaw on, Max. Thank you.
Question the definition of essential goods. Is there a definition for that, and who decides it? And how do we know that things like chocolate or soda are not essential for a civilian population?
I would say it's not a legal part, but more of an ethical, as everyone has its own meaning of the word non-essential or essential. And that is probably why one of the main reasons why we decided to raise this topic, as whether it's essential to still continue selling bars when you say that you're trying to sell only diapers and breastfeeding products.
So I'm thinking operationally, is it correct that if I got this statistic right, that there are currently 6 factories that we have in Russia? I know I should know that because I'm in the LLC, but I just don't. So how many factories do we have in Russia?
Yes,
6?
according to financial data, just recently revealed, actually, there are 6 factories operating in Russia at that moment.
Great. Okay,
Used to
so
be
if there's
7.
6, so excuse me for interrupting, but thank you for saying that there's 6. So what do you want us to do with those? What's the solution? You laid out really beautifully what McDonald's did. What's the proposed solution that you would like us to do with those factories?
As it stated, what what McDonald's did is they tried like helping to boost Russian production, which means that these factories can be used now by Russian businesses itself, as of in terms of selling them to Russian businesses, the same as McDonald's did.
So the spirit of this idea is that we sell the 6 factories to Russian domiciled owners and turn them over to them. Am I correct on that?
To boost the Russian production in terms of all of the goods possibly produced by Nestle, to substitute them with Russian production. Yes, you're right.
Okay, thank you.
How do we make sure, if we do that, that these 6 factories are not going to be reconfigured for even more unethical purposes, or for fueling the Russia war machine or something like that? And wouldn't Nestle be blamed for putting that capability into the hands of Russia just to make a profit by selling its Russian assets?
There's no way to really ensure that, but even now with the regulations in Russia, they have the power to take your factory and pretty much have you do whatever they want you to do. So the government can already control your production, and this would at least completely take Nestle out of contributing and being a part of it directly.
Revisiting the topic of how do we most persuasively make this pitch to our corporate headquarters, how do we plan for messaging to Russian citizen employees, who maybe are expats outside of Russia, who, certainly don't agree with what our government is doing, although it could be a dangerous position for them to articulate that. But we have to anticipate that we'll get negative feedback and criticism for that population of our employees, that we are pulling food products for civilians who aren't part of the war effort out of that country. How should we handle messaging to that segment of our?
If to compare the boycotting of the McDonald's and its exit in Russia, there was not a lot of boycotting in this matter. And if you compare the meetings against of Nestle's products, because they didn't exit from the Russian market, there is a bigger number of supporters who would support this. Yeah, sorry. There are bigger supporters in terms of exiting Nestle than McDonald's.
I don't know.
You know, I'm going to ask one more question about, you know, I'm pondering how we would be able to divest, which is basically what you're suggesting. And I'm wondering what the wisdom would be of us having conversations with other companies. I get the comparison that you're making with McDonald's because it's food business and the similar sizes. But do you have any thoughts in terms of others that we might look to that could help us think this through in a way of divesting in a confidential way?
I didn't find very much of that during my research. I was mostly looking at the legal aspect of it, but I know there were a lot of companies right when the invasion did happen of Ukraine that a lot of them kind of started shutting operations down pretty much a few months into the invasion. So I guess I can't give you a specific company name, sort of say, but I could say that there's a lot of definitely resources out there that you could probably have a lot of meetings with, and they could give you a lot of facts, and they could probably let you know what happened with when they did fully pull out and why they chose to fully pull out, or there's also a lot of companies that decided to also stay in Russia as well. So I guess you could play devil's advocate. You could also there could be a couple different ways of approaching companies, but there's a lot of resources out there that could definitely help us with our decision of pulling out or again keeping essential goods in Russia. I can't give you specific company names as well as of right now, but I know there was multiple companies that did pull out and some just straight up seized operations in Russia.
Thanks. That helps broaden the landscape to be able to get my thinking. I do have one last question in terms of you mentioned SWIFT and the fact that the Russian financial system is not eligible to be able to make SWIFT payments at this point. The Society for Worldwide International Funds Transfer. My concern is now that we're X number more months into this, the flow of currency and exchange from Russia into other countries has changed. And so what might we have to be concerned about? Let's say we sold these 6 factories to Russians who know what the heck they're doing in the factory. Are there some concerns in terms of currency transfer, foreign exchange transfer that we need to consider on the financial side so that we are able to be whole in the sale and be able to expropriate these funds and currencies back to the global headquarters?
Unfortunately, here is a balance of what we wanted to say about is that whether the company chooses profit or ethical consideration and social responsibility seriously, as McDonald's faced pretty big financial charge of losses, mainly by its translation of the currency, as it has a lot of fluctuations nowadays in terms of what is going on in Russia.
Thank you.
Well, I think the judges are done with our questions, so everybody can relax now. We're done with those two portions. You're done with your first 25-minute presentation, and you can just gonna go into the feedback portion. Great job to the team. You did, well, first of all, you took on a very serious topic, and one that can be very difficult to talk about and have conversations about. So I commend all of you for doing that. And you obviously researched the topic very thoroughly. You had some great answers to some very difficult questions that these judges asked you. So I can tell that you had the research and the data and the information to back up everything that was behind the presentation. If you were able to dig deeper and more questions. So that was great. Your slides were terrific, I thought, very well done. The slides was nice as well. And itself wasn't too much content on any one slide, so it really complemented what you were talking about. It didn't, the slides weren't competing with what you were talking about. I would find myself having to decide am I going to listen to the speaker or read what's on the slide. So that worked together very nicely. And all of you are great presenters as well. You have a great speaking cadence, very easy to listen to, very easy to stay focused on, and very easy to absorb. Sharon, which is not true of all students. So I want to commend all really great presenters. In terms of maybe some feedback points, like on answering questions, I think Tom asked you a question about lessons learned in the infant formula situation, how that might have applied. I think if you weren't aware of that and hadn't uncovered that in the research, it'd be impossible to answer that question. And so instead of answering a different question, which is what I think happens, it's perfectly okay to say, I don't know about that situation, but that's a really great point. And we let us go back and research it, and we'll circle back by day or then a week. That changes things. So totally okay with that. And gives you much more credibility than sort of the changing the question and answering. This isn't so much feedback, but I just wanted to share that, obviously this is a very relevant topic and something that I deal with in my role at AMD all the time. This issue of like Nestle products getting into the country. And, I don't even know if you know for sure. Maybe you do, if Nestle is the one selling them directly into Russia. I guess if you have happens and for a lot of products that are ending up in Russia and being found on the battlefield in Ukraine, it's like a mystery to some extent how those products are getting over there. And there will be scrutiny placed on the manufacturers. How are your products ending up over there? And manufacturers can view all the know to sell a product to a distributor, might know who the distributor sells it to. And after that, you don't know. It's sold 3, 4, 5 more times, ends up on the black markets. And it's a very tough problem to solve. So anyway, so big challenge that you guys took on with this one, and I thank you for doing that. So we not at all. A lot of really do want to do the right thing. It's talk about problems.
Yeah, I am very appreciative that you took on this topic. It's a tough one. And you're opening cans of worms, not just a can of worm, but cans of worms, because you're dealing in a landscape that is really challenging. It would have helped, I think, right out of the gate, if you would have had more clarity around who I'm supposed to be, of what my role is. I think that helps me, but I think it also really helps you to be able to laser your comments on how you're trying to influence Tiffany and me. what is it that you're really trying to get from us? Because when you're doing a presentation, especially to a board, let's say we were the Nestle LLC board, to be honest, we don't really care about a presentation. What we really want to know is, what do you want us to do? What do you want the action from us to really do and be really clear? And that might sound really jerky, but it's just kind of what happens in boardrooms of like, boom, what do you want from me? I thought your slides were excellent, really super clear. Things flowed really well from that. I thought that each of you have the capacity to be great presenters. And I really liked the interactivity with you. And I thought that was actually kind of a fun part of this. Probably not for you, but for Tiffany, it is. And these are not easy questions posed, because we're really talking about real global. I mean, good for you that you took on such a big nut to crack, because it's a big global issue. And especially that you went with Nestle, because there's a history that's there of Nestle, which is why I brought up the infant formula thing. And I couldn't expect you to know that, but and so it was a little bit of a test, but it also is an indicator to you that Nestle has played multiple sides of the fence other times before. And so it was really cool that you took on Nestle as the case study for this. And I think that there's a huge, as Brene Brown would say, there's a lot of opportunities for growth in this one. I think I would have touched, I mean, because I'm a financial guy, I think I would have touched a little bit more on the dollars and cents. But I'm probably going to say that to everybody, just because it impacts, ultimately boards are making decisions. The ethics are important. I think you laid that out really well with the UN pieces, and that was super clear. But also the idea of, I've got dollars and cents guys and gals who are making decisions that are, remember, they're reporting to shareholders. They're not reporting to a church group. They're not reporting to a community organization. They're reporting to shareholders. And shareholders want to know how the share price is going to be. And that is tricky. And that's where the art comes into this, of being able to have the cadence of a presentation that can nail the ethics part, and then be able to really also nuance into what the shareholders need and want. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It was actually kind of fun to joust with you a little bit. So thanks for putting up with my questions.
Thank you.
Hey there, I apologize. I wasn't able to get in at the beginning and make the whole first part of the presentation, but I did hear the last part. If I could just ask one quick question, as I get a chance to at the end there. It's that, and I think, Tom, you had brought this up earlier about the differences in responsibility between American companies and companies in other countries, right? And here we're talking about Nestle, very famously a Swiss company. Nestle, Switzerland, of course, prides itself on its neutrality. It's why you have Swiss banks who take money from some of the worst people in the world and don't disclose it, because for good or bad, since like the 15th century, Switzerland has very, very proudly staked its claim that it doesn't really get involved in providing value judgments within reason about what other countries do. Very famously supported the Nazis during World War II and so on. So if we're part of the local operation, and this is meant to try to get us to go to our bosses in Switzerland and to make the case that, in fact, we should be taking a stand here based on ethics and the morality of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. What would be a way that we would get over, again, this kind of fundamental ethos of Swiss neutrality? Like how would we get past that?
So they've already taken actions and implemented sanctions. They adopted the European Union sanctions. So the country is already like leaning more on the side against Russia. So although they are typically one of the more neutral countries in the world, they are already kind of picking a side in this battle with their sanctions and regulations and freezing assets for high ups in Russia. So they've already started taking action against Russia. So it's not as out of the ordinary as usual.
Fair enough. I guess what if the board said, hey, we're already doing a lot. This is already way more than we normally do. Do you really want us to go even further than that? What would be the argument, I guess, for going that extra mile?
I would say the argument is that right now they're already doing stuff about financials, but there's no sanctions directly impacting Nestle. Nestle doesn't really have anything to do with these. So this would have more of an impact on Nestle and the imports or exports of Russian products themselves.
Okay. Just one other quick question. Just yesterday, McDonald's announced that they are acquiring all their franchises in Israel. There's over 200 McDonald's franchises in Israel. And because many of the Israeli franchisees are taking a very strong stance in favor of Israel and the IDF specifically, McDonald's has been getting a lot of grief around the world from countries that object to the way Israel is treating the Palestinians and their activities in Gaza. And their response to that was to buy out all of their franchisees so that they can control what happens in Israel with their brand, right? Rather than leaving it up to independently owned franchisees. They're now buying it so they'll all become company stores so that any of the actions the franchisees had taken to support Israeli soldiers and the IDF and so on and so forth, they can now control it, right? That was just yesterday they announced this. I'm just wondering if them doing that gives any lessons for things that maybe Nestle could do or something in Russia. Sorry to put you on the spot. I just thought that was relevant news.
No, that's a very good question, actually. Like what I think, like since McDonald's is doing that, I think it looks good on their part. So they're trying to take a stand on, how should I say, like keeping somewhat of the peace. I guess I would say, like, because I know there's the big conflict over in Israel and everything that's going on over there. And like you said, like you don't know like if those the privately owned franchises are giving money to the Israel military. I think with them buying out all the franchises, it showing like McDonald's is taking a step in the right direction, trying to keep somewhat of an ethical or peace to them. So I would say for Nestle, but with the federal law, the law number 31-FN, which states again that organization could be turned into international like military service. It's kind of hard to answer that question just because like you don't know like what the Russian government will do to those facilities in Russia. So that's a hard question to answer. I'm gonna be real honest with you.
I'm not equating what Russia did with what Israel's doing. They're not the same thing. And so I don't mean that. They faced there was an analogous issue though, right? Which is we're getting a lot of criticism, ethical criticism about these actions. And so now they had the advantage of being able to buy out franchisees, right? Nestle may not have the same structural opportunity. I was just wondering if there was kind of a halfway step, right? If there was something else that maybe that there was something else could be done. Maybe Nestle could work through, sub-distributors or something like that, that they trust while backing out themselves out of the country. Something like, I just wonder if that was that. One of the reasons McDonald's is doing that is because they're looking ahead, and I'm sure it's something Nestle is thinking about, right? Let's say 5 years from now, let's say things are peacefully resolved. I know we can all dream for a minute. Let's say everything is peacefully resolved. Russia's a huge market. We want to get back in, right? Everybody wants to get back in. Once you've kind of sold out or abandoned it, it can be tough to get back in, and the government may not be as willing to let you in. So I think that might be part of what's going on with Nestle's thinking here too. Something to consider.
Just to add that Israel, in terms of the Israeli example, that the McDonald's is trying to buy all of the franchise but still operating, like to continue operating on its land. This is not what we can provide. Definitely, we can't say that that's going to be the same definitely in Russia, because according to the Russian law, they can use those production for the weapon. So in terms of Israel case, McDonald's can have everything in their control, while Nestle can't take everything under their control in Russia, according to the law, comparing Israel law and the legal aspects of Russia.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Just one other comment that I would make about the Swiss mentality that could be useful if you were going to take this case study further, because I think it's warranted to really do more thought on it, which it's very cool. I worked for one of the large Swiss banks for a while when I lived in New York, and the Swiss mentality is very, very different than certainly the Ukrainian mentality and certainly the US mentality. And to try to get a little bit under the hood of what the Swiss mentality is in terms of geopolitics, business, and global business, that could be really interesting to just strengthen your case more in terms of what you're really trying to achieve. Just thought. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Do you guys have any more questions for us?
Small, just a little tip on your presentation style. A couple things that I learned for doing these. One, don't ever read your slide. Just assume that your audience can read. That's number one. And number two is, when you are going through your slides, try to make it sound more conversational, even if you are kind of following an outline or some scripts. Just, try to, it engages your audience more when they feel like you're having a conversation, as opposed to maybe presenting something that's written out or something more formal. I think you'll find a more conversational style and tone works better, keeps your audience more engaged.
All right. Good luck to the team and the rest of the competition. Great job today.
Great job.
Thank you.
Folks.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.